Brilliant. Okay, everyone, welcome. It's great to see everyone here. We have about 100 people who have RSVP'd for today. So we've got a whole bunch of entrepreneurs and executives here to speak about what we call Outlook 2022. So our team is quite excited about this new year. There have been a lot of changes the last 2 years that have really flipped the business world on its head. And I think as founders and executives, we now need to figure out how to navigate all of the complexity of this new environment and how to also capitalize on that. So today our team has put together a really exciting lineup of different pieces of content. We're going to be speaking about some of the rhythms that are important for entrepreneurial companies. We're going to be chatting about strategy, operations, teams and leadership, sales, cloud technology, marketing, finance, and a whole bunch of other things that are pivotal elements of building a company in this new environment. And we've asked a couple of our team members and partners to join us in this conversation to share kind of short 5 to 6 minute bullet point kind of golden nuggets with you guys that you can take into your own companies in this new year. So like put your seatbelt on, get ready for an exciting content-packed hour ahead of you. I think today will be worth our while. I myself am very, very excited about today and also about this first session. And then with that, welcome. Great to be spending time with you guys. Maybe if you can, switch off your emails, switch off your cell phone and your devices, like really put your focus into it. I think there's a lot to be learned from this session. I'm going to jump straight into the first session just because we are shy for time. I'm going to be chatting about the rhythms that a growing company needs to pulse effectively and to grow in a strong manner. So let me quickly do my screen share. Here we go. Entire screen. Okay. Slideshow. Perfect. Rhythms for scale. So we're going to be chatting about the different kind of rhythm pulses in an organization. And the first thing I just want to do is just share something with you guys that has been really meaningful for us on our journey. And that's the couple of books that really unpack the frameworks of the rhythms and strategy for an organization. And Donna's doing the next session on strategy, which all of these books really cover super well as well. And they're also creating just the framework or the operating system for your company. These are really the handbooks by which to build. So Scaling Up is a really in-depth piece done by the Growth Institute guys, Vern Harnish and the EO crowd. Anything from Jim Collins on strategy and leadership is absolutely amazing. The E-Myth is a really great resource for people who are experts in the area of business. They came from a previous expert position and they're trying to start a company around their expertise, and they have to figure out how to get out of the way from being and moving from the expert to the business owner kind of executive leader. And then Traction is a really good framework that summarizes in a kind of like a simple manner all of the 3 other resources. So if you haven't covered any of these, I'd recommend starting with Traction, basic 20-part framework, and then branching out to all of the rest of them. If you're new into business or you're struggling to grow an early stage company, E-Myth is absolutely for you. And if you want to get into the depth of it, Jim Collins and Scaling Up definitely are some great frameworks. So let's start at the top. So the first thing before we can look at all of the different periodic rhythms within an organization, you need this like one big drive, like where are you ultimately heading? And in Scaling Up, they called the term a BHAG. I think Jim Collins actually coined this. So it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. What is that larger than life goal that the company wants to ultimately achieve that would put a dent in the universe, that will really make a massive difference? That's kind of like 10, 20, 25 years, a whole career in the future that you'd have to work really hard at. So that BHAG sits at the very top of your Mount Everest, and there are then different kind of like steps towards that. The next quarter, the next year, the next 3 to 5 years. And ultimately, if you repeat that enough times and you keep climbing, you get to the top of that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal. So figure out how to craft that. All of these frameworks have got really nice kind of layouts of how to go about creating the BHAG for your organization. At OCFO, we've put this out a couple of years ago. We're accountants, so we said we want to do our BHAG has to be numbers. We said 10,000 and 1,000. Those are our 2 big numbers. We want to serve 10,000 entrepreneurial companies and we want to empower 1,000 finance professionals on that journey. So those are our two major numbers. And if we keep growing like we're growing right now, we'll be there in about 10 years time. So watch this space. Along with that, we also just said we want a flourishing team, raving fan clients, and we want to do sweet spot work. Otherwise, these numbers are quite empty. So that's just our concept of a BHAG. From there, you can then say, what must we do in the next 3 years? Like, what must we look like in 3 years' time if we want to get to our BHAG ultimately? So it's hard to really project accurately 3 years into the future. Look at what the last 2 years look like. So this is almost a philosophical picture, like kind of like what is that compelling vision for what the company can look like in 3 years from now? And Donna's going to cover some of the detail on this framework and strategy as well. From there, you can say, right, we know kind of where we're heading. Ultimately, we know what we want to look like in 3 years. Let's build a plan for this year. And this is then kind of the major 1 year goals that you'd like to achieve. Like, how do you structure that? And what are the core kind of pieces? And then we get to a quarterly pulse meeting. We love it. 90-day planning. We've been doing this for 5-6 years in our organization. You ask all your leaders, what should we stop, start, and keep doing in the organization? You get all of that detail on the table. And then you figure out what the main priorities for this quarter are. And there's many ways that you can distill it down into the absolute core pieces. And then there's a framework in which you can put it together. What do we want? Why is this important? How will we get there? What will it look like when we've achieved this? And who is responsible? You do these 90-day check-ins, and this is your strategic framework at the end of the day. Then there's an exciting piece called the Level 10 weekly meeting, a very nice 90-minute pulse meeting that's in the traction book that sets out kind of like how to kind of lead your team on a weekly basis. And then the daily huddle is also a super valuable concept. Scaling up really focuses on this, getting all your teams into the room at the beginning of each day and asking them, what was your number one win? What's your number one priority? And where are you stuck? And just getting that communication to pulse through the organization very fast. And then lastly, just one-on-ones for you as an executive or founder, just speaking to your team in a one-on-one format is really powerful. Mike Scott, a good friend of mine, has a really great piece called 21 Questions to Ask Your Team Every 90 Days, just for those one-on-ones if you're unsure of how to get the most out of it. So that's a very quick glance from my side of the rhythms that drive a great scale-up company's framework. I'm happy to chat about any of these offline if you guys want to. And with that, I'll hand over to Donna Pretorius, who is one of our co-founders and directors, who's going to be chatting about strategy. Donna.
Thank you very much, Lo. Really great to be here. Let me share my screen as well. Perfect, Lo. You can just confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah, so it's my privilege to talk a little bit more about strategy for a company that's in a growth phase. And my emphasis will be on the 3-year plan that Lo also had in his slide. The Vern Harney's Scaling Up book mentions 3 main barriers for scaling up. And in short, it's basically a leadership not having the skills and tool to work on the business, necessary to grow it optimally, as well as your incapability of getting more leaders and nurturing more leaders in your team. So my emphasis will be on leadership and those tools in today's session. Other 2 barriers to scaling up, also mentioned in the book, is scalable infrastructure and marketing a company's inability to market your business to prospective clients and converting them to actual deals. So yeah, on leadership, I'm here to equip you as executives and founders. So you all of you had an amazing December, a break. January might have been a little bit slow out of the blocks. Everyone got into the rhythm, and everyone is busy wrapping up February financial year end. And the execs are looking at each other and say, listen, how does 2022 look? You know, what does it entail from us from a strategic point of view, and how do we approach it? So typically for our clients, we typically recommend them to do a strategy breakaway day, even a 2-day strategy breakaway. And some of the agenda items in that discussion will be considerations like purpose, your strategy, your vision, core values, your big a hairy audacious goal like Lois mentioned. All of these very important for you as board members to have cohesion and be aligned and to be focused. But then you as chairperson or executive director get to the 3-year picture, and you need to almost like facilitate this 3-year picture with the rest of your board. How do you do it? How do you approach it? So today's session, I'm going to give you some thinking on know-how for you and your executive team, how to approach your 3-year picture. So this is typically a good framework to use. It would be important to establish what will your cutoff be for your 3-year picture. For instance, if it's now February 2022, 3 years from now, we're looking at the future date of February 2025. Now, the importance of this exercise is for you as executive team to almost like visualize the future of your business over the next 3 years. Don't focus on the obstacles, focus on what your business can look like. So it's very important for you as business owners and executive team to get excited about this. Very important. Each director, each executive management need to do their own revenue forecast for the next 3 years. Go ask your accountant for past revenue, understand the different segments, look at past trends, look at future growth opportunities. You know your business better. Let each director forecast the revenue on their own and pitch it to the rest of the board and discuss it. You will sit with a revenue spread of highs and lows between US management, which is quite interesting to see. And then it's important for you as MD just to bring it together and say, listen, guys, let's all agree to what is achievable and exciting revenue target that we can all buy into. Similar exercise for profit, obviously considering your ideal net profit margin and what is achievable, and you know what measurables would showcase to you, showing that you are on the right track for achieving those type of figures. Might be headcount, might be amount of efficiency ratios, it might be number of stores, depending on the industry that you're in. Now, the revenue and the financial side is not the only part. You also need to drill down into it in a lot of deep detail. How does the people look? How many people do we have? How many offices will we have? Will we work remotely? What operational efficiencies will we start bringing into the business? What elements of our business will we systemize? What will be our technology needs, our product mix and client spread? How would that look? Very important to envision that to so much detail that everyone gets super excited about it, because in the end, you as a leadership team are the team that's going to have to roll it out and buy into it. So another good important exercise is for each of the leadership team to almost mention, now that you've imagined this future for your business, where do you as a leadership team member see yourself, your role, your seat in on the bus? Where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? And that's also a very good alignment approach to see what's important for everyone as well. Lastly, 3-year picture, believe in it and want it. So the MD at this stage, everyone, all those board of directors need to close their eyes. The MD need to read out this joint 3-year picture, and everyone needs to get excited about it. This is where you align your team and really get excited about your business, because if someone is not excited about your 3-year plan and they don't see themselves in that scenario playing out, then it's a very big discussion point between you as management on that. So believe in it and want it, whatever the mind of a man can conceive and believe it can achieve, from Napoleon Hill. So lastly, then we focus now, Lau mentions the B hack. I focus now on how to approach your 3-year strategy visualization. This will now equip you to move to a 1-year plan. Because you know what your 3-year plan is. It will really help you with your 1-year plan, and you can break it out into quarters. 1-year plan, you can focus now, make sure that your 1-year plan is on this trajectory necessary for you to achieve your 3-year plan. Plot it into your budgets, make sure that you've got your numbers in that, and so it's on the right trajectory for your 3-year plan, and get into those quarterly rhythms that Lois mentioned. Go watch our YouTube. There's some more videos on strategy. If you're interested in it, that's me. Over to you, Lau. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. I love that. It always gets me so excited to think about strategy like that. And I love that thing of just the essence of strategy being knowing what not to do, right? That's so cool. So next up, we're going to be chatting operations. I'm going to ask for Willem, our COO, to join us on stage. And let's have a think about how operations need to be run in this new environment. Willem.
Thank you, Lau. I'm just going to ask the organizer to allow me to switch on my camera. It's just been blocked from organizational level. So there we go. Fantastic. So you guys can also see my face. So thank you, Lo. My name is Phil. I'm the operations manager, the COO here at OCFO. And if we quickly stand still, look back at the previous 2 years, we notice a dramatic increase in the volume of technology applications, or systems, or processes that are being deployed as a response to the pandemic. Now, what I mean with this is different apps to look at different functions. We saw, based on the pure volume of the applications being deployed in haste, there was a lot of duplicate functionality and crossover functionality between different applications. So this is a trend we've already started seeing towards the end of 2021, and we really firmly believe that this will continue into 2022, and it's something that we are applying into 2022 as well. And that is, I've coined the word just stability. So we're seeing a downward trend in the volume of technology being deployed to address operational pressures. And we're seeing a very healthy upward trend in the amount of time being spent on maturing existing technology solutions. So from an operational perspective, what we're currently encouraging clients and encouraging ourselves to do is to really look at what has worked over the last 2 years, because we were just responding to whatever the pandemic was throwing at us. What worked? What didn't work? Chat to your team, send questionnaires, and get feedback from your team as to your operational systems, what worked, what didn't work, and where can we improve. And for this year, spend your time on maturing those existing technology solutions is something that we really see key for 2022. We have some golden rules that remain in place. So number one, SOP, ensure your standard operating procedures remain in place and that they are revisited on a quarterly. If you're a startup organization, ensure that you're revisiting your SOPs on a quarterly basis. And if you're a more mature organization, ensure that you do it at least biannually. Many organizations try and reassess and relook at their SOPs once a year. And what we typically find is by only doing it once a year, you lose that competitive advantage and additional competitors started entering into the market. Ensure that you twice a year, spend some time, take a day away, go sit in a coffee shop and just have a fresh look at your operating procedures to ensure that they remain effective. Number two, ensure access to data. Ensure that your team has access to the data so that in the beginning, you can manage them. Then later on, your managers can manage the team. And then eventually, and this is where we are striving towards at the moment, is that people can self-manage through access to data and through access to systems. And lastly, lead by example. Be the leader you want your team members to be. Show them the example and they will follow. I personally live by the motto of there's 3 ways to lead in life: by example, and by example. And that for me is core to the operational function of any business. Next, we have remote working versus work from the office, work versus a hybrid solution. This is something that we really see a question that's still going to give a lot of headaches to many operational functions. Yeah, at OCFO, we have some team members that prefer to work from the office, so they work 100% from the office. We've got a lot of team members that work 100% remotely. And then we even have a whole group of team members that some days enjoy working from the office, some days working from different locations or working from home. From an operational perspective, one really needs to continue to take this into account and not build your systems just for one approach, because then the operational function could fail. So you need to take into account that people will remain working from home, people will remain working from the office, and also be able to fluctuate between them. Because the workforce that's growing right now wants that flexibility, wants that ability to make a choice of where they want to work. And your systems and operational procedures should be able to accommodate for that. If you can accommodate that effectively, you can employ anyone in the world and service clients throughout the world. And my last comment for 2022 is that the biggest investment you can make this year is time with your people. Your most valuable resource that you have in your organization is the people that's already trained, that's already loyal, already bought into the vision. They've got the BAG, they see the 3-year plan, they're on the road, they're going for it. With remote working, with hybrid working and everything that goes along with that, make sure that you spend time with your people. That one-on-one that Lo has just referred to is so core to keeping that relationship, because many staff members are missing it. They're missing the one-on-one interaction. They're missing the love. I think that's the best way to say it. They're missing the love. So make sure you spend your time with your people. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wilhelm. That leads us very nicely into our next session, which is focused on people. We've asked Martin van Eden, who runs Imagine Better, to come talk to us about that. He's a coach, a performance, business, life coach, all put together, that's working with our leadership team at the moment to just lift the game. And he's going to be chatting to us about how to think about people in this environment. Martin.
Hi, thank you very much for having me, Lo. I just want to apologize before I start. Technical difficulties were on my part, so I've got no presentation ready that I can show, just because Outlook or PowerPoint decided to crash on me numerous times today. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm on e-news or something and just take you through what I've been thinking about the last couple of years, or the last year or two since COVID hit. And I just want to share in this short 6 minutes with you 3 concepts that will make your team highly adaptable, resilient, and high performing, and then 5 leadership trends to consider in 2022. I think we all have heard the concept, the Great Resignation, the past few months. We've seen it on the news. We've read about it in business journals. Companies all over the world had an outpouring of talent quitting their jobs during COVID. And there are numerous reasons for this. But some people say that the pandemic was actually just the catalyst for this movement, that people were actually considering leaving their work way before COVID actually started, and COVID just was like the last nail in the coffin to get people to move on, to find better opportunities and jobs. So scholars, journalists, leadership experts have reframed the Great Resignation with words like the Great Reshuffle, the Great Upgrade. And if you go and Google the Great Resignation, you will see many other greats out there. So I want to add my voice to that today. And I want to call this actually the Great Integration, because we've been living with COVID now for 2 years. And if we haven't learned how to adapt, how to be resilient, and how to live into uncertain circumstances, then we haven't learned anything out of this pandemic. So that's why I call it the Great Integration. And integration for me is a much better word than creating balance, because integration allows us to sit with the uncomfortability of that things are changing, that we have to create new systems, we have to adapt to new ways of working. So how do we integrate our lives and our teams with constantly adaptable and changing environments? And in his book, Culture Code, Daniel Coyle has got 3 main concepts that I feel is getting back to the basics of what teamwork needs to be. And just the context of how we implement this have changed with, as Wilhelm also said, that we've got hybrid work, we've got remote work, we've got 100% office work. So how we implement this is very important. So the first thing that we would need in 2022 is to build environments of safety. Psychological safety is a word that's been going along for a very long time. And so I think in our hybrid teams, and this plays a very, very important role. We need to trust our teams, that our teams need to know that they are trusted, that they will get the work done, that there is room for experimentation, that they can try new things out, that there is flexible work conditions and freedom to choose where I do my work from. So communication is a very big thing in creating this belonging. to step up communication, to step up the thank yous, and to step up the praise, and to make the most of what I call threshold moments. Make something special of when someone joins your team, even if it's remotely. Make something special of celebrating birthdays, even if it's over Zoom or remotely as well. The second thing is to share vulnerability. And vulnerability creates cooperation. We often think that we need to trust before we can be vulnerable, but actually it is actually the other way around. We need to be vulnerable first, and then we can establish trust. Jeff Balser, who is head of organizational psychology at Harvard, he says that what teams are really about is the ideas that we can combine our strengths and use our skills in a complementary way. And being vulnerable gets the static out of the way and let us do the job together without worrying or hesitating. It lets us work as a unit. So I think from a leadership perspective, it is good to share vulnerability. Ask your teammates what they need from you. Show them that you are also struggling and coping with new ways of work, and ask them what you can do personally to make work better and more effective for them. And then the third thing is to establish purpose. And it seems that's all that we're going to have time for today. And purpose is a big word. The funny thing about purpose is that most companies establish their purpose during times of crisis. And I feel that most companies missed out of this opportunity during COVID. In the book of Art of Possibility, there's a line where they say that don't let people live up to the expectation, rather let them live into possibility. So ask your people, what is possible in these changing circumstances? What is the possibilities that we can look forward to? I wish I had more time to get into this. I'm happy to chat with you offline or in the near future. This is the stuff that I'm passionate about. So remember to share purpose, be vulnerable, and create safety and belonging. It was good chatting to you guys. Bye.
Thanks for joining us, Martin. Appreciate that. And yeah, guys, if anyone needs to reach out to Martin, we'll share his details with you guys as well. So yeah, Michael Bueta, our head of sales, is joining us next. Strategy and culture and team and all of these things are very important, but they all grind to a halt if there are no sales. So we're going to hand over to Michael to just talk to us about how to do sales in this new environment.
Thanks very much, Lo. So I thought I'd just share a little bit about me for some context. So I've worked in the financial industry for a number of years. I've played rugby overseas. I've worked as a freelance writer, writing sort of anything and everything I could at the time because it's the only job that I could find. I even worked for a company which created ice art for a number of 11 days before the sort of COVID of 2020 settled in and I got shipped out. I've been fortunate enough to find myself in an array of different environments, organizations, and cultures. Some have been great, some have just been. But in this time, I've had some wins, a lot of losses, but most importantly, throughout the whole process, many, many different lessons. I just wanted to share a couple of the learnings that I feel are important that I have experienced that I think can be quite useful in terms of heading into what is looking to be an exciting 2022. The first lesson I want to leave you with is speak to, understand, and then to be understood. I forget the exact study, but basically all of the sales development reps for a large organization were given a number of different categories and metrics which they were to be measured on when trying to drill down into understanding who was achieving the most sales and more importantly, why. There were obviously various nuances, being industry specific, geographically specific, cultural specific, but the crux of the matter was this, is that women came out on top. I mean, no surprise there really, but the real reason or real question is why. So after a deeper dive, it really boiled down to this. Women spoke 30% less than men on calls. Now, why was this? Did they not know the product or service? Were they shy? Were they new in the organization? No, the answer was simply they listened. The focus of the conversation was on the prospect and the issues they were encountering, not how much you could tell them about the amazing things your offering does. No one cares about infomercials. No one cares about you talking about the 40 new features your new SaaS product has. They didn't come here to listen to your TED talk. They came here to speak to you because they had a problem that needed to be solved. When it comes to inbound and outbound, they are very different, but also very similar. And it all really boils down to the prospect having a problem which needs to be solved. With outbound, in an ideal world, you are trying to land in front of the prospect who is encountering a problem which you can communicate that you can solve simply. With inbound, they came to you because they had a problem. Whether this was because of your name, network, marketing, they came to you. So take some time to really listen to why they came to you before you tell them how great the thing it is that you do, and then your features in your update. Talk about their problem first, understand their problem, and then you can start to understand your product or service and what aspect of it has the most impact in terms of helping them solve their problem. Talking is great, but understanding is better. And if you really want to be heard, you have to understand first. Second thing I want to leave you with is don't be a tool, but use them. So there's a myriad of different technologies we are all using at the moment with an outsourced CFO, as well as the business environment at large. I think at the moment we use about 18 different tools in our tech stack, which can be quite daunting at times, especially someone coming into the organization. But when you're looking at tooling up and bringing technology into your sales and business development process, there are a couple different things which I think you should strongly consider. The most important is the foundation in your tooling process, and to really identify what your entire sales and business development process is and put it down on paper. Whether this is old-fashioned pen and pencil on a piece of A4, on a Google Doc, it doesn't really matter. But when everything is out on the table, it is far easier to understand the nuances and where the problems lie. One of the things I can share which has helped us a lot at OCFO is building out certain playbooks which are designed to put everything on the table so we can hone in on what is working, what is not working, and then start to iterate to provide better results. Keep processes as simple as possible. Many tools do many different things, so it's important to have a look at your work process, find what is most simple, what is most replicable, and what takes a lot of your time. These processes are then able to be able to be automated and outsourced. Look at doing this before bringing on a bunch of expensive new hires or elaborate tools, whatever the fashion of the day is. Remember, there's no use in buying a Ferrari when all the time that you have is to get to learn to drive a VW, and all that your business sometimes needs is to drive a VW. It's a lot easier to give part of a job to someone or something than an entire job. But in order for this to happen, it is very important that what you are doing is clear and what you are trying to achieve is also clear. Technology is absolutely fantastic and great, but it must never be forgotten that a purpose of technology, specifically when it comes to sales and business development, is to enable bandwidth for the person you are talking to and for yourself, enable to be focusing more on the human-to-human element. I think that's something that never should be forgotten. The last thing I would like to leave you with, as I know time is short, is the value of empathetic communication. So why empathetic communication as opposed to just communication? The key is to focus on communicating with someone by trying to understand a bit more about their person, their problems, and their point of view. We all have so much going on in our lives. It's so easy to become, me-centric in our approach. But when it comes to really connecting with someone, the onus of focus needs to be particularly on them. Remember, people are so different and digest different information in different ways. Some people like to read, emails. Some people prefer sound-based communication, such as phone calls or voice notes. Some people digest information best via, video. This kind of sort of process extensive platforms too when you're looking at identifying which to focus on. What works best for you, your organization, and your audience is potentially a big secret which can be included in your source. Don't be afraid to experiment with different techniques. Use a combination of approaches within your sales and business development process so that you can slowly start to dial in how best to communicate and connect with prospects and clients. But remember, whatever it is that you do, make sure you are able to measure this process, as only when something is able to be measured are you able to start understanding and then improving on it. Thanks very much for listening to me. Over to you, Lo.
Thank you, Michael. Great job, man. Very inspiring session. Let's say the sales are coming in. Now you need to figure out how to automate processes. I think cloud technology adoption was a major trend prior to COVID. It's now massive. I think everything is moving to the cloud. So as a kind of small or mid-sized organization owner or manager, like how do you embrace cloud technology? We asked one of our heads of system integrations, Michael Marshall, this question. Over to you, champ.
Thanks, Lo. Okay, so let's start off with what is cloud technology. So cloud technology is also known as cloud computing, and the main function is to deliver different services via the internet, such as data storage, software applications, and for those who are into cryptocurrency, blockchain and ledger applications. Now, these are 3 points. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different applications when it comes to cloud technology. So I'd like to meet Peter. Peter is the owner of a small software development company based in South Africa. Peter wants to scale his business, but he's facing a couple of roadblocks, as most entrepreneurs do. So he has limited resources, he has a small team size, and he isn't sure what the demand would be like for his services. So Peter knows that he's going to need to expand on his tech stack if he's going to meet his growth targets, as Lo and Donna mentioned, the BHAGs that they have in place. So Peter decides he's going to do a comparison between an on-premises solution versus a cloud-based solution. And to just give you guys an example, this picture that you see on the left-hand side that looks like a spaceship is an on-premises solution. The one on the right is basically a cloud solution. Clean, tidy, just connect to the internet, and there you go. So the first thing Peter does is he looks at scalability, specifically starting with the on-premises solution. So firstly, he finds out that it's more expensive to set up. There are fewer options to choose from. Once you scale up, it's difficult and expensive to scale down, and it's expensive to maintain. So then we went on to look on the cloud, and basically he found that with the cloud, you only pay for what you use. There are lots of options to choose from. It's easy to scale down as well as up as your business changes, and there's no maintenance required. So then we went on to look at server storage. So with an on-premises solution, you require a lot of space to house the servers. So for any of you who have an on-premises solution, you'll know that there's this dark room somewhere in your office that sounds like an aeroplane. It looks like an aeroplane sometimes, and below is a little picture of a whole bunch of cables and mess. It's not nice. And then there's, due to all these servers and space and stuff, there's going to be an increased cost when it comes to electricity. When we look at the cloud, you don't need space because everything's hosted by a cloud service provider, and therefore you're going to save money. So if we look at security, on-premises solution, there's less data security. And it's not just hacking you need to worry about. It's things like fires, tsunamis, Mary walking from the kitchen with a cup of coffee and tripping and messing coffee all over your servers. So it's all of those type of things. And due to these security risks, there's additional admin and SOPs that need to be in place. So additional security protocols. Whereas with the cloud, it's much more secure. You have backup of backups, and your data is often spread across multiple different countries. And the security protocols are kept up by your cloud service providers and always kept up to date. It's important to note that they're kept up to date by professionals who've been doing this for many years, and large teams, not just John from down the road. It's a proper team that's doing this for you. Then we have data loss. So you saw with that picture just now, if your data wasn't backed up and you had a fire on your on-premises solution, your data is most likely gone, and the chance to recover that is going to be very unlikely. In the event that you did have a backup, the time to recover that lost data would be complex and it would take some time. Whereas with the cloud, they have a robust disaster recovery measure in place. Sorry. And this is because they have teams, massive teams spread across the world who specialize in this. And then the time to recover is relatively quick and easy. And the reason being is cloud technology is built to be user-friendly and intuitive. They don't want you to have 3 degrees in order to work their systems and software. Then when it comes to maintenance, on-premises solution, you're going to need additional staff to run those spaceships. Whereas with the cloud, you don't need any additional staff. And the reason being is your cloud service provider does that for you, and they specialize in that. So in conclusion, Peter decided to go with the cloud route for his expanding business, as was low risk, low cost, more secure, and it gave him the freedom to grow without having to worry about system updates, security protocols, data loss, and all of those things. So to any of those who are considering the 2 options, just go cloud, save yourself the headache and hassle, and yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Michael. Okay, can I ask to get Lucille Portman on the call, please? Lucille is our fearless marketing manager who spearheads the OCFO marketing strategy. Donna mentioned way in the beginning in his strategy session that out-of-the-box marketing is a big part of a scaling company. So we're going to ask Lucille how to market a company in this environment. Lucille.
Awesome. Thanks, Lo, for the nice introduction. So, and a warm welcome to everyone joining us today. So one of the questions that we get from a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners is this: how can my marketing efforts make more money for my business? So that's why I decided to take you through 10 easy steps to formulate your own marketing strategy for 2022. These have no themes or trends. It's just a few easy steps to help you drive your marketing efforts. That being said, let's start. So the first step is, in this context, business foundations. And that includes looking at your company's vision, your company's mission, the brand statement, perhaps you have a slogan, and most importantly, your company's annual goals. Because as you have learned now so far with all of the speakers before me, it is really important to have your goals in place, because from your company's annual goals, marketing should support and feed into that and then lead to sales. Step number 2 is internal assessment. So have a look, have an overview, think about what should we stop doing, this is not working, what should we start doing because it has a nice potential, and what should we keep on doing because it's working for us. It's also nice to reach out to a few clients and getting their feedback. It's nice to get some internal feedback from your team, as well as looking back at the previous year on how marketing has performed. And lastly, having a look at your target market needs or potential target market needs, because they do change from time to time. Step number 3 is market research. That meaning looking at your competitors. So list 5 to 10 of your biggest competitors. And what I like to do is I like to apply Porter's 5 forces. Step number 4 is making a list of your marketing goals for the year. So now go back to your company's annual goals, look at where marketing can support them, and then list 5 to 10 of those goals. Step number 5 is, now that you have set up your goals, you need little action notes to support them and make them happen, okay? So that could be search engine optimization, social media, public relations, events, maybe changing your website, and looking at paid media such as Google Ads. Step number 6 is probably the most important part of your marketing strategy, okay? This will determine whether or not you're going to hit the return on investment, okay? So if we give an example, this is how it would look. Go back to step 4, and now you've set out 10 goals, 10 marketing goals. Pick one that is the most, like, number 1 goal to achieve for the year. So let's say your company is looking to expand into a new country, so you have to create brand awareness. Now, how will we create brand awareness? Well, we might look at optimizing our SEO. We might communicate that through social media channels. We might change our website slightly and perhaps run a few paid campaigns, example, a Google search campaign. So all the other 9 goals, marketing goals that you had set up, they become a second priority, with your number one goal being your primary goal priority. So the 9 other goals and their action notes will slightly change in order to fit in and support your number one goal. Step number 7 is setting up a marketing budget. So it's nice to have a low, a medium, and a high-end budget, because we don't know what the year is going to bring. So sometimes we might have an increase in revenue than what we expected. So we might want to push more budget behind some of our goals and action items, or maybe the opposite. And maybe we are seeing a decrease in revenue, and instead of cutting the entire marketing budget, maybe cut on a few items, so therefore falling back on your lower marketing budget. Step number 8 is, now that you have all these goals, you have to prioritize and structure them. And it helps to then implement them into a 90-day plan, meaning quarterly. So look at it from this point of view. This is where I am at, this is where I want to be, and this is what I'll need to get there. So taking your goals and putting them into quarters will help you feel much more in control. Step number 9 is to visit your marketing strategy once a month, not daily, not weekly, just once a month. And of course, the last step is to assess the previous quarter. So after the quarter's done, go back, have a look at your goals, have a look at your items, and see what has outperformed, what has done almost well, we're getting there, what has not performed well. Maybe you want to change it slightly, because we know a marketing strategy or any strategy should be flexible. So then thereby doing so, you can then flow and push that back into the next quarter to help you at the end of the day achieve maximum ROI. And so if you apply all these 10 steps, putting a marketing strategy together, you as a business owner and entrepreneur will have more peace of mind focusing on your company. Thank you, Lo.
Thanks, Lucille. Thanks so much for putting that together for us. Guys, we've come to our last session. If all of your other systems are working within the company, finance is then the glue that holds all of this together. So we've asked Uwais, our executive head of advisory, as well as Damien Baker, our head cloud accounting manager, to discuss finance in a growing company in this new world with us. Gents, over to you.
Thanks, Lo.
Thanks so much, Lo. Good afternoon, everyone. As Lo mentioned, I'm the executive head of advisory services, and joining me for our discussion on the finance outlook for 2022 is Damien Baker, our head of cloud accounting, who our CEO managed to poach from a big firm, and so now we're well on our way to competing with the big companies doing things the OCFO way. So Damien, I wanted to talk to you about the accounting function for each company specifically, but you mentioned before we jumped on that you had some questions for me. So let's touch on those first, and then I'll answer your questions.
Perfect, Uwais. Thanks for the introduction as well. Uwais, I would just like to know, what is your actual thoughts currently on the global economy and how that impacts businesses currently in South Africa on their objectives?
That's a great question. So, I mean, if a lot of you might have known that interest rates are starting to increase, so your consumer has less money to spend, and prices are starting to increase. If your consumer has less money to spend, they might be spending less money on you. Some businesses are not adapting for situations where costs are rising. This means that their profits are falling, and even their working capital is being put under pressure, especially if they've got clients that pay late. There's also global supply chain shortages. So maybe you might say, my business is not really affected directly by global supply chain shortages, but your suppliers or the suppliers of your suppliers might be significantly affected. And have you considered how that would impact your sales if your supplier can't deliver to you? Stock that normally gets imported from overseas might be significantly delayed, or the cost to get them on time might be significantly more. I mean, in the US, there's certain port costs that used to cost like $1,000 is costing $10 or $20,000 to get there. So your costs have gone up significantly, and some companies are not taking consideration for that.
No, Uwais, it's a lot of changes that's currently happening within South Africa as well, and a lot of changes that businesses have to actually deal with. So now the next question is, how would a finance team actually deal with these changes? Because you mentioned a lot of things now, importation costs that are increasing, your landing costs are increasing, and the cost to get it to your premises are also getting higher. So how would the finance team deal with this?
So simply, how the finance team or even the business owner, my question to them is, do you have a budget or a cash flow in place? If not, that's where you need to start. If you have a budget, your budget needs to cater for all these increases in costs, these increases in expenses. Your cash flow forecast will immediately show you whether you have sufficient cash in 6 to 12 months' time. A lot of businesses have financial year ends that are now at the end of February, but most business owners are managing their business from their bank account alone. So they're not considering that they have to pay a massive provisional tax payment in 3 weeks. And that's a massive cash flow risk. Cash is king, and if you don't have the cash, you will be out of business very, very quickly.
Now, it's a scary thing to actually think about, because improper cash management can actually lead into long-term problems for the business. And that is not from a finance team perspective, but now as a business owner, let's say I'm not very financially literate as well. I've got an idea, I want to grow my business. How would I have to think about the changes in the environment that I'm operating in?
So let's take it down to the detail. Let's start with pricing. What are you currently basing your pricing on? Yes, you could say maybe it's supply and demand, or my competitors have this price, so I chose the same price. But if your costs are going up, pricing is something you need to look down on an individual product level. What is my price per product? What is my profitability for product? This is something that the CFO can help you with, because you might think, oh, my sales are going up, but your costs are going up high, and you might actually be selling at a loss, or you might be making profit on your individual items. But when you add all your costs together with all these increasing costs, you're making a loss because you haven't considered it. So that's something, bring in a CFO to help you have a look at that, from pricing assessments, budgets, and so forth. Maybe if I can just switch a little, I want to circle back to those questions that I wanted to ask you earlier. So
okay.
For an individual company, how can I optimize my accounting function with the impact or this global impact of inflation, supply chain issues? Give us your thoughts there, please.
Oh, we can sit here for hours speaking about this topic. Unfortunately, we don't have that. But let's look at the impact of inflation even. It's a major impact on South Africa at this stage. And even if we're importing abroad, the exchange rate is also not in our favor at all. So business owners need to actually focus on optimizing their internal resources. And I'm talking about cash and all of that. But another resource that is sometimes overlooked is time. How do you effectively use time in your organization? And I'm going to pose 2 questions to everyone on the call today. Have you automated manual accounting processes in your organization? Secondly, can your current accounting system actually be automated? And the reason why I'm saying this is currently there is numerous technology available on the market which will enable you to automate manual accounting processes. So as a business owner, as someone in the finance team in an organization, you can actually focus on more important tasks. For example, growing your business, getting more sales, expanding your business, and not just being caught up in administrative tasks that is laborsome and takes up significant time from you as a business owner, which is actually pulling your attention away from expanding your operations. So I would definitely say, let's look at automating your business in a more effective way. Thanks, you guys.
Time is money after all, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, and let's talk your finance team in particular. How do I set up my finance team for success?
Oh, you guys. So let's be realistic. What's happened in the last couple of years now with COVID and everything as well. Remote working is the way forward as well. And we have picked up now that it's actually working effectively. You could have staff members sitting in Egypt today working on your company, and it should not be a problem. And what we've picked up from our client base as well, that clients have taken a step back and started thinking about this. Is it worth my time to actually employ someone full-time for 8 hours a day for an entire month and actually use that person just to do accounting processing? Rather look at outsourcing that opportunity cost to a firm that can actually assist you with a set number of hours, for example, 8 hours on a monthly basis only. That's all your business needs at this point in time. And through this, you're going to reduce risk. And what I mean by that is that your team that you are going to hire to help you with your financing side, they actually have the skill set, and it's a multidisciplinary team. There is tax specialists, there's accounting specialists, there's secretarial, payroll specialists. And as a small business owner, you might not necessarily have the capital to actually invest in that type of staff and complement for your organization. So I would say, look at optimizing your internal operations. If you need internal staff, by all means, see how you can optimize the usage. But outsourcing is a brilliant way to go. It's cost effective, it reduces risk, and as a business owner, it helps you with your cash flow as well.
So if I'm appointing one person, I get one person's skills. If I appoint a firm, I get everybody's skill that comes with that firm.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. You touched on it a little bit earlier, but you talked about remote working. Well, Helen talked about remote working as well. Do you think once everything is normalized, will remote working disappear?
Whereas people have become very comfortable with this whole remote working environment, I do foresee remote working staying with us for a very long time to come, but it's not going to be a full work from home situation. It's going to be a hybrid model. As Wilhelm has mentioned, you need to accommodate that model that people want to work from home, have flexible working hours, and sometimes come into the office to complete certain tasks. Let's look at what's happening currently in the market. Growth Point Properties, massive property company in South Africa, lots of business properties, and they've got these big, fancy office blocks standing empty. So they've actually now gone on a journey now that they're actually converting these big, fancy office blocks into high-end apartments. And they're not the only ones doing this. Organizations have realized that this remote working environment is fundamentally changing. And this is changing the view of how businesses are operating. Why invest significant amount of money in a building that's going to stand empty? And this is something that COVID has shown us, that we are able to adapt to our circumstances. So I'm going to leave a question to everyone on the call today. So as a business owner, what other changes can you make in your business to adapt?
And that's quite interesting, because I know one of the big four banks, one of the Cape Town offices, when they sent everybody home for remote working, they actually sold their building, and they haven't bought a new building since then. So until further notice, those staff is going to be working from home, and you can't just buy a building tomorrow or next week. These things take time. So for the next year or two, they'll be working from home. But just in terms of let's end up with an important takeaway from our discussion. What is preventing you from achieving your goals as a business owner? Damien, over to you.
Uwais, I would honestly say is reluctance to change. At this stage, there's a lot of things that have changed in the market. Change your mindset to optimize your operations internally so that you as a business owner can focus on growing your business. So that's my key takeaway for 2022.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks everyone for joining us for the discussion. Lo, over to you.
Guys, Damien, thanks so much, everyone. Really appreciate that. Very good conversation you guys just had. Yeah, that brings us to the end of our session, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I think there were lots of interesting golden nuggets on the table here in terms of, thinking about what to do next in this new environment. We hope that you have some good takeaways from that. If you want to get in touch with anyone from our team who spoke today, just let us know on the emails going out after the call. And then we wish you all the best with your journey into 2022, with growing your company, building your team up, getting out there in the world and doing your thing. We are your biggest fan as entrepreneurs. Keep at it. Good luck with everything. And yeah, we'll be right here to support you as and when needed. Guys, thanks for being with us. We had so much fun putting this together, and we will see you all very soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.